Please welcome Hodinkee founder Ben Clymer and Omega CEO Reynold Eschliman.
All right. Hi, guys. How's everybody doing? I have to admit, this is pretty surreal for me. The fact that we've been doing this for 10 years now is wild. The fact that we're able to fill a room like this and have potentially thousands of people watching at home is even more wild. Before we begin with this conversation with a good friend, Reynold, here from Omega, I want to say thank you to all the readers that made this whole thing possible, all the shoppers, everybody that supported us from the very beginning. I know there are a few guys here in the room that have been with us from the very beginning. Obviously, everybody on the Hodinkee team, which has made this happen and many other things happen. We clearly wouldn't be here without you. Two people that are actually seeing me do my job for the very first time in person are my parents. So my parents are actually in the audience today. I don't know where they are. There they are, right there. So thank you, parents, for birthing me and supporting and giving me everything that I've needed to get to this point. And even more expressly than that, more directly than all those thanks, which most people are thankful to their parents for, is thank you, Mother, for having a father that gave me a watch when I was 16, the watch that I'm wearing today, this Omega. So this watch was given by my mother's father to her son, me, when I was 16, and this is the watch that really started the real fascination. And I loved mechanical things before that. I loved cars and my father was a photographer, so light meters and cameras. But watches really were a special thing to me early on, and then obviously still are today. And so again, thank you for allowing me to have this watch and allowing me to have this watch that has created this amazing life for me, frankly. So thank you. And of course, Reynold, I mean, this watch is where it all began, and this is one of your watches. And it's amazing. I've heard so many stories over the years once it became publicly known that the Omega started things for me. It always seems to be Omega at the center of these kind of family-oriented stories. Why do you think that is?
Yes, also from congratulations on behalf of all of us. I mean, I also have to say that, even though I'm being called sometimes a veteran, and I still believe I'm very young, it's been an incredible last 10 years, and what happened, and you're one of this example of, if it's needed still to say that passionate people about our watches, and I think that's very, very encouraging for all of us to continue to create, to work, to try to continue our work, and as you said, especially more when we talk about Omega. And my whole life at Omega always been meeting, of course now more, but meeting people that somewhere always on their way had that brand, because we are a universal brand. We are a brand that is close to a history of many of the families, but it's also because we are so much inspiring people, and I love to say in a good way, universal, and as we say in French, popular, democratic watch. Yeah. And that means a lot. That means a lot, and let me just say it from the beginning, because we're celebrating here watches, etc. It means for many people already the first great investment. Yeah. That they made or that they inherit. Yeah. And I'm always making the same joke about heritage. In French, héritage is about getting money from your parents or from the uncle. And it goes very often only in terms of finance. And my values, at least if you get all the money from somebody, you continue to get the values. Sure. And the fantastic word in English is more heritage, about values. So yes, Omega is in the center of many of these heritage of family values.
Yeah. And you've been with Omega for a long time. How long exactly?
It's been more than now 22 years, yes, exactly.
And how has the brand changed in those 22 years?
I have to admit, I started at the right moment. As you probably know, I was in the middle of my PhD. I wanted just to get something real. I was missing a bit of a real life because I was doing finance and banking. Nothing about that moment, that kind of business, even though Swiss. At that time, Swiss banker was still something very incredible. I prefer to be a Swiss watchmaker in the meantime. I always preferred, by the way. And it has changed a lot. But I remember also, nevertheless, I was at the very beginning. And talking about heritage, I remember that was the time where Mr. Hayek Sr., was every single management committee in the house. We could feel it. But he also had already that vision of who we are today. And that's why it was always for us very clear that there was always the next step to be done. But it was a time where every single decision, as for today, when I talk to my people, it was very important. But it has changed a lot. We were 300 people at the headquarters, and in the meantime, we were 3 times more. Probably the same like Hodinkee 10 years ago. Yeah. Even from a multiplicator, much bigger, but the spirit is still the same, but it has changed. We had already these 4 lines that were very important. We had already, that vision that we wanted to be close to all the consumers. But we had also a very big envy, a very big motivation to change and to work towards. That was our vision. And the vision has not changed, and I'm saying that vision has not changed.
Yeah. And so many of these families have taken on their own history. The Speedmaster, of course, being the most prominent, certainly in the watch collector world. We can talk about that all day long, but something that I've always found fascinating is the Speedmaster is actually not among your top sellers globally. Is that true?
Yeah, it's very interesting to whenever we look at the families, and luckily enough for this year again, it's now a real pillar. It's a long time, and I think I'm not saying any secret that it was once in the 90s only one. And that was a big discussion, and it's true that Mr. Hayek saved that single watch, because there was a lot of finance guys that were saying it's too much investment just for one single SKU, the famous 35, 70, 50 that we all know. And in the meantime, we worked a lot in this part of the world, but also in Asia, on the Speedmaster, especially last year was the 60 years anniversary. And we managed to create, also history by bringing back the feeling about Speedmaster, the racing, and many, many other ones. And now it's one Speedmaster is among the top 10 sellers. Yes.
One Speedmaster is among the top 10.
Yes.
So what is your #1 seller? Because I think it surprised me, and I think it might surprise other people in this audience.
You probably have seen that we've been doing one of the most interesting work lately, and I was very, very happy to be able to coordinate and lead that. It's the new Seamaster 300 meter that we just launched, and probably have seen these incredible advertising everywhere in the world, but also the product, with 8 new technology that we've put inside. And why I'm saying that is just because exactly these 2 references, and I'm not going to start because you know so much better all the references of the world, but the 2 James Bond, the 2530 180, the blue and the black dial, has been forever, at least for the last 5 years, the biggest sellers. Yeah. We're talking about watches that are being sold on a daily basis everywhere in the world, and in fact, we are very happy, and I can talk very openly about the success of the new designs, but obviously the black and the blue are still the best sellers. Yeah. So maybe this year, because of the 2 generation, there might be altogether even more of a sales. These are the top sellers, yes.
I think that the dichotomy of what Omega is kind of what makes it so fascinating to me as a collector, because, frankly, every time that you guys release a new James Bond watch, it's kind of like a moan that goes out through the watch community. It's like, oh my God, another one of these? And yet it really works. And I think that is something that's so compelling. And manually wound Speedmasters are so collectible, and everybody just loves them, and they're not a top seller. And I think that's what's really hard for a lot of connoisseurs and watch guys to really grasp that there are really different watch buying worlds out there, and you cater to both. And the James Bond watch really works for you.
I think it's also the secret of our brand. I'm very proud to say that we are very very inspirational brand, but we also have these families. And when I say universal, it goes into our presence worldwide. I mean, everybody knows our big success in Asia, but also in this part of the world, our big families, and we are a very coherent brand. It's not that we just have one mono product and the rest. And I think that, yes, also, you know, Speedmaster is an incredible inspiration, but James Bond is a watch that means a lot for people. And there is, for these two references, the Moon watch and the James Bond watch, a lot of people that are saving and will take it as their first watch. And this is also very good, and we see it also in Asia. But obviously, to come back to the James Bond limited edition, there is, and I have all the figures obviously, there is not only because of the limited edition, every single movie, every single line that we're launching during the movie help us for the next year to sell more watches.
It really
does. There's a very coherent way of explaining for those who still have some doubts about the effect that this is magic. And I think that that's also why we're looking forward to exactly the same time of the year next year, where we'll have the privilege to show you some incredible watches.
Yeah. And I think similar with James Bond, you guys work with the Olympics and Nicole Kidman and Cindy Crawford, these really globally recognized brands. I mean, the Olympics, above all else, is such a global phenomenon. And again, you're here with us at a watch collector, kind of conference. And I think that's the beauty of what Omega is. And so how do you kind of balance that from an executive perspective? How do we cater to everybody in China buying James Bond watches and then the people that read Hodinkee and Revolution and the watch magazines out there?
I think that it's been also in our DNA that we have to take care of all these four lines. And believe me or not, this whole team, the management, the people at the headquarters, so in the market, and also our customers on the shop or retail level, they are used to get these stories on an individual basis. There is this kind of a magic about having the DNA of Omega, but being separated. I call it like a family. It's interesting to see in our stores, and I remember very well having had the chance to at that time be the co-CEO of the first boutique in Zurich. The way we were scheduling and presenting the watches has been at the beginning already a big discussion about having only ladies' watches and gents' watches, or having collections. We always decided for collection because we always said these are own culture, but at the top of the line, they're not different from being Omega. So obviously we're planning very well, and we're a company that have this in the DNA of our management, how to balance, if you want, every single collection. But it's very nice today, and I'm very proud of all of us at Omega to see that in the top 10, there is a presence of all four lines, and there's not one line that is like the majority of it. That shows that our missions and our work, as long as they stay coherent during the year, they are very valid for our customers.
Yeah. And where do women fall into priority for you guys?
Sorry?
Where do women fall in? Women's watches fall into priority?
Sorry, should have listened it a bit better. If talking about 50% of our sales, that's also one thing that changed. 1996, there was only 17% of our sales done for ladies. Even though in today's world, what is a ladies' watch? I mean, if you talk about Seamaster, and many people wearing Seamaster, Speedmaster, and with great pride, it's a symbol of femininity somewhere. Also, to have a big diving watch on the wrist. So it's very clear that we work there on a very coherent base on constellation. This is for us the symbol of elegance, and this is mainly also being sold to lady, but we just launched now with Kaya, one of the newest line, and it's also very interesting to see that even at Omega we were able to come with this new Trésor. That was a totally new designed watch in that family of the Ville, which is also a very important pillar of us. So we care very much. We have also a lot of inputs being coming from all the markets. A lot of our people in the management in some of the countries are ladies, but mainly also thanks to our stores, we were able to understand that there was also in our collection, a very big need of having a very well-designed, quite modern, feminine Trésor that would be sold, and it's quite a success.
That's interesting. You know, we look at so many other brands, and in many cases, women's watches are really just downsized men's watches. So with Trésor, which is a men's watch, obviously, and Constellation, there is a men's version of it. But these are different, these are coherent, originally designed as female perspective watches.
Yes. Yes, this is also one of the things that when we discussed about Trésor, it was very clear to me. I wanted that watch to be almost on a 360-degree ladies project, and exactly for that reason of not having a gain, as I said, then better keep the normal size, right, and you sell it well, because this is a men's watch, but that the lady wants to wear as a men's watch, not a small one. And by the way, you see it in our new Seamaster 300 meter. There's none these 29 millimeter that we used to have, that anyway was honestly, and we're among friends, ladies-looking watch.
Sure, sure. And I think something that's so interesting about Omega is you guys play a role as one of the leaders of the watch world, obviously, among the top 3 brands, certainly. How do you kind of compare yourself to those in the number 1, the number 3 position, things like that? Do you benchmark yourself against the Rolexes, the Cartiers, things like that, or is it not something that you really bother with too much?
It's an interesting question that you're not the first one we're thinking about it. I think that, you know, basically, and it's very nice to have been able to talk about all these 4 lines. I think that it's interesting to see that we are so much focusing on how to grow the community around these 4 lines that the sky is the limit. And for me, I'm you know, when we talk about the values of Omega, you know, our name come, and we all know that, I'm sorry to repeat, from being the first movement with spare parts, with technical plan, and that's why it was called Omega 124, almost 25 years ago. And I think that this is the pioneering spirit. And for us, it's much more important to think about how to continue to create. You know, I can talk about many of our pioneering spirit actions we've taken. Chronometer certification, for instance, talking about anti-magnetism, about precision, about only the certification. I think that's, for me, much more important, because this is how we will continue to grow ourselves and sell all these watches on a daily basis. And of course, grow, but not just for becoming any number. It's just because we have that in our blood, and this is one of the most important pillars of our strategies, to continue to create the best for the customer. That means that we will always continue, and this has brought us now to the position we have, and we will keep this, because this is much more important to me and to my colleagues, especially in the product department.
And do you have ambition to grow the number of watches you make per year?
I think that if you look at our new factories, which you know, it's kind of another milestone in our history, we have forced into, of course, to grow, but to grow and continue to be the leader where we are. That means in a very nice and very Omega, I would also say, dedicated price range, and in that price range, future will say. But it's not our main topic to increase because of the numbers. A lot of areas in the world that have already, on a democratic and infrastructural point of view, a very big increase. That would mean that the demand would grow, and in some of the cases, yes, we might have to grow, but not to the point of having, you know, and it's good to have a brand like Omega and the history of a comeback. You could go back into the books and the strategy of not that you have the feeling I'm doing that, but sometimes it's quite interesting to hear and to listen about the past. And I think if we talk about increasing number of watches at Omega, there is some past history that we should also be very careful about, of having people that used to say, let's sell millions of watches to millions of point of sales to millions of people. We know where that brought the situation. So always continue to be coherent and consistent, but obviously if I look at this year with an increase of units, because there's an increase of sales.
Yeah. And I mean, something that Omega has done really better than most, if not anybody, you've revived historical models in authentic and really pure ways. And I would say most notably last year with the oversized kind of pocket watch-based chronograph. And that's a $125,000 watch, I believe.
Yes.
And how did that sell for you guys?
Oh, it's very, very much incredible. Already the vision to have this done, and also to have the passion of the people, you know, going into everywhere in the world on a silent way, secret way. And that's what is very interesting in 21st century. We all connected, and there's still this kind of project being able to be made, and having some watchmakers that the only mission for months is to recreate this limited edition. It's funny enough to see that the collectors have answered with an incredible positive echo. So we are more now under the big pressure to finish the last ones and to make them, to sell them. And what also has been a very big pleasure for me to see that watch on the wrist of some of this customer, no later than yesterday night. And it's very interesting to see that watch, it's not watch that you would only look at. In fact, you can wear it, and it still has something which is incredible. And I'm going to show it. I'm going to say it the first time for the 3 days, vintage look. But it's not a vintage. It has the DNA of our brand, and I'm looking forward to next year with 125 years of history. We might have to, we might be able to discuss maybe some other project around this history being brought back to life on a selected amount of pieces, just because ability. And goes back to our history and to the vision of having people, especially in the customer service or in the spare parts department, that have kept all that because they knew they were working for one of the biggest maisons. And they knew that they had to care about the future. And I love always to open these drawers and to see these master watchmakers taking some small parts, even though sometimes very Swiss, there are thousands of them, and you ask yourself, why? Because we sold at that time only 1,000 watches, but it's good to see that because you feel that this is a real brand. You feel also that there were people caring about this brand, and for me as a president and CEO, I'm always very emotional about that. We have this incredible opportunity, this chance of having that brand in our hands and being able to create an emotion that is a totally modern.
So you guys know, in a few minutes we're going to open the floor to questions from you, to Reynald or to myself, of course. So if you have any questions, just start thinking of them and we'll pass around a microphone in just a few minutes. So obviously you've revived one movement already. There's another movement that I think all of us would like to see brought back. Any plans for a 321 in the near future?
It's a question that is very interested and very interesting to me. Honestly, I always say the same thing, and sorry for being a bit a politician. I don't think there is any future in a brand like Omega without a huge respect of the past. And respect can be doing limited edition, as we've done, by recreating the real part, and respect being also able not to play with it. There is a famous thing that I say to everybody of my people, and it's in the very famous Snoopy watch that it's one of the only one I bought also. Failure is not an option. And for me, failure not an option is also the meaning around the 321. But I do understand that there is a lot of emotion and a lot of interest about this. I'm not going to answer in another way, but I thank you for the question.
That's fair. So we have about 20 minutes left, and because this is such a rare opportunity for you guys to get to interact directly with for him. I think we have some microphones. Yep.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
If I have the story correct, in the mid-'60s, NASA, the American Space Program, bought up several high-end watches and gave them a torture test. Mm-hmm. It was Omega and Rolex and the rest of the big boys. I always wondered how you were able to make the watch that survived and no one else did.
I'm going to answer you on two ways, and I know we're on air, if I may say this kind of a American way. I would love you to come and visit once our museum and talk with the people like, if you can one day, to Jim Ragan. This is the DNA of our brand. And if we are today the one and only, and I'm really insisting on that, having invested a lot of money for getting the master chronometer certification, it's exactly because our people at that time, they had invested a lot. Speedmaster, and you have to think, Speedmaster sent to the NASA, like, and I want to say like all the other brands that what we know, but I've never been and I don't know, they were normal series Speedmaster, and we know that very well. We have the references. They were robust. They were, and I'm sorry for being, but I'm very proud of saying they were Omega watches. And they passed 2 times all the tests. And by definition, they were hard tests. And that's the only watch brand that passed all of these tests. And it sounds a bit easy maybe, but it's because it's an Omega. And we keep that as our guideline. And it's something that is very much into our DNA, but we have all the proofs and we have all the tests, and we're very proud of this. And that's also why we're still the one and only watch that is officially used by the NASA and other astronauts and cosmonauts for all manned flight for the time being.
Yeah. As an aside to that, actually, so this watch was bought by my grandfather in 1995, I believe, and it has been serviced 1 time since then, and it works perfectly. And it was serviced by me maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, and it works flawlessly. I think there is something about Omega quality that is really hard to define until you really own one. Any other questions? Oh, one back.
Hi. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy around the coaxial escapement and how difficult it was to industrialize that, and then the efforts to capture the value with the consumers to educate them on why coaxial escapement might be better?
Thank you for the question, because that's also one of these key elements, because we're Swiss sometimes. And it's I don't know if you've seen, but we talk a lot about master chronometer certification. That's also something we're doing a lot. We don't talk only about the past, but we talk about the future and all what we invested. And coaxial came at a point that was very important for Omega. And it's not a legend. I know it very well because I was already there. And as you know, I was quite young, but I've got the unique opportunity and unique chance to be close to still my master and the Mr. Hayek. So he saw that, and he saw the vision as this incredible man. And when he met with George Daniels, and it was very clear. There was the coherent and the continuous and the consistent way of the movement of Omega. Not one saying today, 61, 80, 63, but there is not one automatic movement at Omega 20 years ago that has not the coaxial being implemented, and we have even now worked on the new movement. So what we've done is that we ask our engineers to work twice on it. First, to integrate it into our common movement, and then to create another movement around this with silicium, with many things. So I'm not an engineer, but that was very much of a key point of Omega, but it was related again to the movement. So in 100 years, I hope that people will not talk about who was the CEO, but people will talk about that moment, because it was like 125 years ago when Mr. Braun decided to create the watch. So that was a very important thing, but it was very coherent. Of course, it was decided by our CEO and, Mr. Hayek. So it's easier when you have that gentleman and with all his charisma and his power deciding this. But it was very honestly a decision that he made at that time because it was right for the brand. And thanks to him, we have today the master chronometer certification. And I'm very happy, sorry to misuse this moment, just to say without coaxial, there would be no master chronometer certification. From that, I'm 100%. From the spirit, but also from the technological point of view.
Yeah. And we are thrilled to say that we'll actually have George Daniels' apprentice, Roger Smith, here with us, I think tomorrow on a panel. I don't know if he's here right now, but I think he'll be here tomorrow on a panel. So it'll be amazing to hear about the coaxial from his side of things. He obviously still is licensed to use it under his own brand. And it's just fascinating to see the different uses of the coaxial with Omega, which is in 700, 800,000 watches per year, and then Roger Smith, who makes 12 watches per year. And it's very similar stuff. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi. I was curious, what was your first watch you ever owned?
Oh.
And the second part is, if there was one watch you would keep for the rest of your life, what would this watch be?
You're going to make me cry very often. I was, in fact, my personal story is quite interesting because I never had any grandfathers, but one was a very good butcher. So I would have lived in the meatpacking district. By the way, I love it also still. And he passed away very clear. So my father never been in a watch, but I was born in a place where everybody is linked to watches. And as I say, and Joe Thompson wrote it very nice in the Hodinkee magazine, we were living at the Rue du Soleil, which is on the top. We don't always have the sun that you have today in New York. And everything was linked with watches. And I was born in a time when there was not maybe the best years of the watchmaking industry. We all knew somebody that was maybe a bit suffering. I remember very well having had in my hand the first Goldfinger chronograph of Swatch. I still have it in my office. I didn't know anybody except of Mr. von Kennel from Longines, because that's where I was born, in Saint-Imier. And I remember that was for me. And once again, in today's world, we're talking, and you are all collectors, and you know so much about watches, and we're back into this world of vintage, of people talking about watches, this get-together. I love this get-together. The only thing what I don't like is how to say GTG. It's a difficult word for me. But I prefer Speedy Tuesday, I think everybody knows. But this get-together is about passion. At that time, there was no passion. But that watch, I remember it was a bit of a pride already to have it, because I had an uncle, he was a big boss of department store, so we could get it before, but also because of the look. And somewhere, it was my first watch. And I still have it in my office, because I remember the pride of wearing a special watch, but also the look and the whole spirit about Swatch, about saving all these things, because we knew that. We could feel that there was a watch that was different. Second watch is my famous Seamaster Planet Ocean chronograph that I wore because, everybody, I could talk about Speedmaster, Speedy Tuesday, many watches that I had the privilege now in the meantime also to be kind of a part of this whole team creating success, but it's not about that. That watch was given to one of my friends in a very hard time of his life. And when he gave it to me back, he was again on the best form, and he's my best friend. So you see.
That's great. Yes.
Hi, you touched on the wearability of some of the sport models for women, but right now, as far as I'm aware, the marketing doesn't really reflect that. You have Nicole Kidman being marketed for Constellation, George Clooney wearing a Speedmaster, and so the lines seem to be kind of clearly drawn. So my question is, do you ever envision Omega's marketing machine getting to a place where those models like a Speedmaster or a Seamaster are marketed intentionally toward women? And if so, what would you like that to look like?
It's an incredible question, because it goes into marketing strategies, and I think it's by definition something that is kind of difficult to tackle on this way, and especially if you look at the worldwide strategy that we have. I truly believe on consistency and coherency, and I think that it's clear that the Nicole or Kaya were very often and since very long linked with some models of watch, and that's called of Jens model. But I would not say that this is written in marble and would never change. I very much agree that this kind of question should be asked, and sometimes will be done. But still today, I think once again, 50% of our sales are being done with ladies' watches, mainly Constellation, the Ville Prestige, and also sometimes the Speedmaster cappuccino that is very well sold. So we will, for the time being, still continue to go that way with these ambassadors, because they also love to wear this kind of watches, maybe more than the James watches, I have to be also honest. Even though I know that Kaya loves very big watches. I would call them boys' watch, boys' size. I will not start about what is the size of a boy watch, but it's very clear that the world has changed. I'll take this point. It's one of these moments where we have this unique chance to have all this family of testimonials and ambassadors that will fit to that, where we have to decide to which watch they will be on an event or for an advertising. I'm very lucky to have had the chance to launch Constellation, the ladies' models, with the all four about 2 months ago in Shanghai. And that was also for me the first time that we have them at least all together talking about Constellation. So I did a bit the other way around. I said Constellation should be all of us, and they came. Maybe one day we'll say all of them should go on a boys or men's Speedmaster. History will show, but it's definitely a valid point, yes.
I think we had a question over here. I thought we did.
Yes.
How often do you get to hang out with George Clooney?
Oh. You know, it's very interesting to talk about the relationship that was put in place for long. If you think about talking about Kaya Gerber, she's Omega relationship to her mother is longer than her age, and I think that's exactly what to answer your question is about, answering the fact that the last time I saw George was at our factory. Mm-hmm. He was visiting. He wanted to visit. It's very clear, and I think that's more or less to show that he has a very, very incredible and nice and emotional contact to our brand. Yeah. So I'm the president and the CEO, but I think that what is very much important is his link to the brand. And the way he is with our brand is very valid and very pure and very emotional. So that's why it's much better to do it this way. This is a George Clooney-Omega relationship, and I happen to be sometimes there when he's there. And honestly, it's great to have this kind of personality, just coming and saying hello to all our employees. And the only thing is that they are not allowed to have iPhone or any phone, so there was not many pictures being taken on that day. You should maybe blame the presidency or who forbids iPhone in the factory. Yeah. But it's a relationship, and I was also the testimony, as I said, witness of having these 4 testimonials on one stage in Shanghai, and also to see that the values are being said. I truly believe in emotion, but not when there's only emotion, when there's more than that. And I think that this is something what happened between the brand and the people that are on our side, from their level to people we know, we meet. I got the chance to meet a lot of people that are very passionate about brand, and this is also something that means a lot because they're very much linked to what we do. And sometimes the only emotion is that they think we should do more number of limited edition, less, more numbers, less, more numbers. So there's always a decision to be taken, and I do it with great pleasure. But for instance, the Apollo 8, I don't know if you know, but it's limited only in production, but not in numbers. So be a bit patient. So you see, sometimes I'm also listening to passionate ambassadors that are wearing the watch on a daily basis, sure. And that not maybe George Clooney or Eddie Redmayne. Yeah, and somebody, I forget if it was you or somebody else, but I believe Clooney had an authentic Omega connection before he was an ambassador. His father had one. Yes, it's very interesting to hear about this story about Speedmaster, the watch he was given to him, and there is a very nice talk when he thinks about, there's also a nice video we've done that came like that, because when he was meeting Buzz Aldrin and they were starting to talk, it's one of these unique moments where you understand that there's just much more than putting two people in front of a camera and you say 3, 2, 1, this is for Omega, please say something.
Right.
And it has a lot of value because this is also history. Next year, with 50 years of moon landing, still moon landing, these guys, I mean, or dark side of the moon. I mean, see you on the 21st century where everything is connected, Instagram, etc. And then that time, there was about giving your whole, almost body and soul for growing the world.
Yeah.
But I'm not a philosopher. I'm a watchman, so I will not try to. There are probably other people that might be on this stage that are better philosophers than me.
Sure. And I think just because we have to, let's nerd out a little bit on the Speedmaster here. So one of the coolest moments that I've gotten to experience as a journalist, and we get to do cool stuff, Wei can attest, you know, the watch industry is not a bad place to be. And one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do was go to Russia with you for the Sochi Olympics where I met Tom Stafford.
Yes.
And meeting Tom Stafford, meeting an actual astronaut, I think is up there with meeting anybody. You know, anybody that a young guy could possibly meet. And your connection with NASA, with Reagan, with all the guys that are involved with NASA in the early days, you know, in selecting the Omega, how has that kind of shaped how you communicate, how you kind of, you know, tell people what Omega is?
I think this is so much of a true story, and the more we talk about it, the more, you know, I've been traveling a lot with Gene Cernan in my early years, and even though that he was explaining this story, some story that I knew, that is something that you cannot change. I mean, you know, we're talking about a lot of strategy that can be shared or that can be copied by people. I think and we can talk about James Bond, but the moon story, also because of the story of the moon, the story of the Speedmaster, it's kind of one of the most and strongest milestone of the value. And I'm very, very proud of saying that this is, if ever, one kind of a monster that created the whole stakeholders. And that's why we are looking forward for next year, because also, I think in terms of, you know, this feeling and the spirit, and also because it's a story that was so much linked with brand, with robustness, with test, with really, there was something that created some kind of a layer that is an untouchable layer, and still today has a lot of value for humankind. And we cannot take it as something, another element of any marketing strategy. This is a solid base that hopefully will continue also for the humankind to be very important. At least for Omega, it's one of the pillars. This is definitely true.
Of course. And Buzz Aldrin is still kind of a friend of the brand. He's working on a Mars watch. Is that true?
Yes. Yes. No, it's amazing also whenever we are able, and I had this privilege to talk about with many of them, Charlie Duke or Buzz, and to see how much passion, and the passion as we like, and as I like to do it, and it's like emotion, is the passion comes on the top of all what they have, and the way that they still look up and think about the next, not about an ego way of saying we were there, but like pushing us to work, explaining me how many hours there is on Mars, and having all that in their mind, going and coming, and moving that is quite of a unique things to live. And that brings us also to the next level. That brings all of us to say, hey, you know what? They're never happy. These guys want the world to continue to dream, but to dream in a direction where everybody is going to work on the technology. So it's kind of a unique, yes.
So we have just a few minutes left. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Yes, right here.
How do you think about marketing to a generation that hasn't grown up wearing watches, much less mechanical watches?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Mechanical watches, I said that in many interviews, have a soul. The new generation They have influenced us a lot, and I'm very happy about that. But they are influenced us in a way that they want to understand a lot, and they are very much in terms of what, why. And mechanical watches have exactly, at least at Omega, our watches, they have a lot of answers. They have a lot of meaning for them. It's just about how to communicate. And there we have to be new. There we have to create something. But the new generation, believe me, is as much as interested as having a truly, genuinely automatic watch on the wrist than maybe even our generation. Why? Because they've also understood that it's not only time that they have on the wrist, but if it's not only time, nevertheless, and that's a fantastic paradox, and I love this paradox, is about value. So the value that you have on the wrist, that must be clear, and that must be the best, or the ones that they love to wear. So I always say they fall in love with the tic-tac. Let's keep them fall in love with that.
I think what's so amazing also is in my travels, some of our investors, some of the stories I've written, I deal a lot with Silicon Valley and a lot of .com guys and engineers. Johnny Ive, most famously on the cover of our last issue, his very first watch was a Speedmaster.
Yeah.
There's something about .com guys and engineers that just fall in love with the Speedmaster. And Johnny obviously wears an Apple Watch every day. He designed it. But on the weekends, I saw him recently, and he's still a Speedmaster guy, among others, of course. But I mean, a Speedmaster and Omega is such a close connection with engineering, whether it be silicon engineering or mechanical engineering. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. Anything at all? Great. Oh, we have one more.
Thank you for this. If you had a 60-year-old Constellation that needed work, would you send it back to Omega to have it
Serviced?
worked on and serviced, or would you try to find someone who had vintage parts that could replace anything that needed work on it?
So happy about this question. Because for once, I'm going to be very Swiss officer, and I was not the best officer in the world. Yes, of course. 2 reasons. First, because we have all the spare parts, and this is part of our DNA. There's not a no at Omega in terms of servicing watches. We're looking for, always looking for any solutions, investing a lot of money. In fact, after the production, the customer service is the 2nd biggest department of Omega. And we are just working on a fantastic new concept, by the way. I will talk about it probably within the next 6 to 12 months. And I'm very proud of the team there about creating also some atelier linked with the age of the watches. And I can tell you the head of restoration service, he's a guy, he's a geek. I mean, the guy knows everything about old watches, but he could tell you or tell your family or tell my friend anything about the newest and the coolest sneakers in the world. We have the spare parts thanks to a former generation, and our mission is serve the customers, and we're very proud of this. So bring it back to Omega, and we will do the service. And on the top, and I'm sorry for being now a bit commercial, you'll also get, and this is also quite unique at Omega, and for the ones who know that, in a small pocket, every single spare part that would have been exchanged. You can keep them or throw them away. But it's very clear at Omega that any watches that we serve, we never get, keep if you want, the bad parts. We'll give back as an emotional gift, if you want, because some people, they keep, including the leather strap, which some people say, why? It's just because maybe the watch was worn by your grandfather, your father, somebody you love, and I tell you, this is something that has a lot of value, but we did it since long, so it's not Reynolds' new strategy. So I'm very happy for the question. You can even, if you know very well this person, you can even give the address of me, because I'm also very interested in maybe helping that famous person that has this constellation that may be with him today. Yes, please. We have invested, and we will continue to invest it, because this is part of our service to customer and our vision. And I'm very, very proud of this.
Great. Any more questions? Wonderful. Well, Reynald, I want to thank you so much for being our first guest here. And thank you all.
We would like to thank Audemars Piguet.
We'll see you guys all in a few hours for the next session hosted by James Stacy, who's in the back over there. So see you guys soon.
We would like to thank Audemars Piguet, BMW, Cartier, Grand Seiko, Oris, and Zenith for their support in making this weekend possible.